What is up, Beast Mode moms and dads? It's Christian father, husband, coach, and autism advocate, your host, Trey Turner. Welcome to the Superhero Parent Pod, a voice for the voiceless and a lending ear for all those who feel like they're struggling alone. This is the safe place where each week we go behind the scenes and enter into a world that most people have no clue even exists. So welcome, sit back, and enjoy the untold stories now told of strengths, struggles, blessings, and one never-ending journey of parenting a child with special needs. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Superhero Parent Pod, episode number 4, interview number 3. So our first 3 interviews here, we've got a wide range of superheroes, and we had a mother of an autistic child for our first interview, and then the second we had Down syndrome. And so this one here is going to be a huge learning experience for me, because up until a few weeks ago, I didn't even know this diagnosis even existed. But welcome to the show, Miss Tiffany Carroll. How are you, and good evening?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So Miss Tiffany has been a client of mine for, I guess, total combined time, a few months off and on. But this last go around, I've had the pleasure of not only coaching her, but her daughter as well, who will be actually, this is much credit to you and maybe not as much credit to my coaching services, but the first actual teenager who has truly, I guess, capitalized and executed the program. I've coached a lot of teenagers, and it's very hard getting them in the mindset of the importance of exercise and healthy food. But your daughter's actually been the first true success story that I can confidently brag about. So kudos to her, and that's who we'll be talking about today. But before we get to her, just real quick, you reside in where?
Katie's, Kentucky.
Katie's, Kentucky, and you are the mother of Jemma, I know, and then any others?
Colin. Jemma just turned 15 on October the 2nd, and Colin will be 14 in March.
Gotcha. And Colin is just a year younger?
He is 17 months younger than Jemma.
Gotcha. So they are best buds, I'm going to assume.
But each other's best friend and absolute worst enemy at the same time. So
yeah, siblings a lot of times, which we'll get into that later, but at least for ours, feel like there's an extra layer of responsibility there for them, that they have to help take care of their brother or sister that has special needs. And most people see that as like a downfall, but it's really helped our daughter as far as responsibility and taking care of someone else. And so hopefully same or similar situation for you all.
He's gone through the loss and the risks and everything. She was 4 years old when she first lost her vision, and had her first serious surgery. And so he's, even at 2 and 3 years old, he knew, be careful with Sissy. Sissy can't do this, can't do this. So he's almost 14, and he sacrificed learning how to ride a bicycle because big sister couldn't do it, and he didn't want to. Yep. He already feels bad because he can do things that she can't do. So just the fact that he hasn't resented her or been bitter towards her or anything. It's just kind of,
right.
He takes it in stride, and it's just like whatever Jemma can do, he'll do. And, but he's her biggest fan and supports and everything she does. And he's even cheered her on with, her working out and things like that. It's like, Jemma, I can see your muscles. So it just kind of,
that's awesome.
Seeing that is just kind of, it's sad to see that, he feels the pain that she feels and things like that. But at the same time, knowing that, he takes up for her and everything else, I'm proud of the way he's adjusted, and helping her as well. So
yeah, that's huge. A huge adjustment too for something that they wasn't expecting at all coming into the world. But I guess before we get any further, so what exactly is Jemma's diagnosis? Because I've already forgotten how to explain it to people.
It's Jemma has it's called Stickler Syndrome, Stickler, Stickler Syndrome. It's just a collagen deficiency. It can be genetically, it can be hereditary, it can be a random genetic mutation. And with Jemma, hers was a random genetic mutation, and it's a long story, but summed up, going into her birth, we were kind of given a loose diagnosis of achondroplasia, which is a form of dwarfism. And throughout the whole pregnancy and everything, we were kind of prepared, to maybe have a C-section and things like that. And just kind of, we didn't know in the beginning. We went for our ultrasound, and they said, hey, congratulations, the baby girl. And we went back for our normal checkup, and we were hit with hey, what did maternal fetal groups say? And we were shocked. The doctor that I originally had, the OB doctor I had, was the same physician that had delivered me.
Wow.
So, I mean, he had been in it a while. So I just kind of, attribute it to, he sees many, many patients a day.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay,
how long ago, how far along were you?
So at that point, I was 24 and a half weeks.
Gotcha.
And he said, yeah, you guys were supposed to go for another ultrasound. We're thinking she's going to be a little person. And I just, as a mom of your first baby, and I actually, I'd had a pregnancy before and had lost that one. And so kind of having that in the back of your mind, like, you're like, yes, I've been, and I was sick the entire time I was pregnant with Jemma, and just, it was miserable. I actually lost weight. I lost 14 pounds
during pregnancy.
Up to that point. Yeah. The entire pregnancy, I lived on Mott's applesauce and Popeyes. Like we should have invested in stock, because that's what I lived on. That's the only thing I could keep down.
That's the only thing you keep down.
That was it. But yeah, so back to that, I just kind of told him, I said, so are you sure if you can just check her file, just double check, please?
Yeah.
And he went out and asked him to come back in, and he said, yeah, you're supposed to go for another ultrasound. Her long bones are measuring short. Again, 23, 24-year-old new mom and dad, you don't know what those things mean.
You have no idea what that means.
What do? We're sitting in the doctor's office, connected to Wi-Fi, Googling long bones short, achondroplasia, and my heart sunk. Not that there's anything ever wrong with hearing a diagnosis, but the fact that you want to be able to protect your child, and then knowing going in, first of all, I'm already behind on the game, and then seeing all of these things that could make your life's child harder.
Yeah.
And it hasn't even started yet, is just kind of overwhelming.
It wasn't in your plan.
And I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we knew in the beginning, I mean, nothing is my plan. It's not, it wasn't Brad's plan or anything else. It just kind of, we took it in stride. And I asked him, I said, well, can we go ahead and have an ultrasound now? He said, yeah, well, we could have done amniocentesis, but since you're further along now, there's just a huge risk involved. We can try it. And I said, if there's a risk involved, I said, if we can go ahead and do an ultrasound, that's fine. So we went and we had an ultrasound, and we went the very next week. It was as soon as they could get us in, and speaking with those techs, we knew between that week. I mean, I slept as much as I could, and at the same time, even through sleeping, all the risks and everything else are kind of going through your head. So we knew going in what they were going to be looking for. Yes, long bones are measuring short. So from the shoulder to the elbow, from the hip to the knee, just different things that would show up on ultrasound that would confirm or let us know for sure that it wasn't. And the only thing that they could confirm for sure was that the long bones measured short. There was no other symptom or sign to check off the list. That's one thing or another. And I was shocked when they took us in to set us down and said, hey, would you like to come in for another ultrasound just to confirm? I said, well, I mean, if there's nothing you're showing me now, and all she's going to do is grow some, if, what more could that do? And she said, well, a lot of people just like to have that extra assurance to choose whether or not, what they want to do. And as
in not having the child at all.
Yeah. Or, she said 7 out of 10 that we deal with end up either terminating or having the option for adoption. And I said, there's nothing that's going to affect her, like long term, there would be effects and things like that. But as far as her quality of life, if it would be terminal, I said, there's nothing. I said, you can't even give me a definitive, yes or no. She said, well, sometimes that's all it takes for people. And I was floored.
Yeah.
Just knowing that. Yep. And then, so, I politely told her, I said, if you can't tell me anything now, I'm not going to waste my time and stress out more. I said, we'll just take it in stride, and we'll do our research and do what we can, and we'll prepare the best we can. So leading up to it.
At that point, you all still thought it was just dwarfism?
Mm-hmm. We did. And so with achondroplasia, if you're familiar with the television show Little People, Big World, she would have had a normal sized torso, maybe an enlarged head, and smaller limbs.
Gotcha.
So, we were kind of just prepared. Okay, well, we might adjust the height of things and just kind of see where it goes. But the risk of having a natural birth versus a cesarean, if you have a natural birth or risk going into labor, it can actually separate the spinal cord and cause death or permanent paralysis.
Yep.
And, I just, I told my husband, I said, I would love to be able to, to have that natural birth. I said, but if there's any risk involved, I said, it's my job to make it the least risky birth as possible. Whatever we can do to protect her and make sure that everything's going to go good for her. That's all we're going to do. Yep. So, we were, And then the other thing, we walked and stayed healthy and, did everything. I drank water and, tried to eat as healthy. Even if I couldn't keep it down, I tried to eat as healthy, give her the best chance at, okay, maybe she'll be small, but she'll be healthy and small.
Yeah.
And 36 weeks came, 37 weeks, 38 weeks, 40 weeks came. And I went back and they're like, hey, yeah, you're dilated a little, but, just need to come back again. And I was 42 weeks.
Wow.
And went back and actually, a good friend of mine actually was there at the time working with the amazing OB doctor that we actually ended up seeing because my doctor went on vacation again.
Yeah.
And so we came in and she checked me and she said, you don't mind, I'll be right back. And she said, I'm going to bring the doctor in. And he said, I'm going to pray with you for a minute. And I thought, oh no. It's like, is there, because the heart rate was fine, everything was great. I said, what's wrong? She said, well, so he may have given you a little false hope in saying you were dilated. You're not gonna ever have the baby naturally. I said, oh, I didn't plan on it anyway. I figured we were going for a C-section.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, well, that wasn't even notated in your file. And I said, oh, okay. Well, what do you mean? She said, well, the way your body is tilted, she's like, you're never gonna have a baby naturally just because of the way your hips are. She's like, you basically have a barrier. She said, was it hard to breathe? Not even like halfway along? I said, yeah, but I mean, I just figured
nobody ever knew or told you?
No. She said, oh no. Like she said, Jemma basically grew up into your ribs instead of dropping down.
Yeah.
I said, really? She said, yeah. So you're going to have a C-section. She said, do you want to wait until, your doctor comes back in? And I said, no.
Get it out of me.
Are you sure? I said, yeah. I said, as far as this goes, I said, if there's anything it was God's plan for her to just, bake longer to get as big as she possibly could. And, the fact that this physician came in, I won't say any names, but he just God placed him there when he needed to be. He came in and he said, I don't know if you're a Christian family. He's like, but I'd like to pray with you. He said, whatever happens, if you want me to deliver Jemma, that's totally up to you guys. And, we'll talk about it. I said, well, when can you do it? And he said, well, I mean, I can do it tomorrow if you need to. So that was it.
Put us on the books.
We went in the next day and we were supposed to have her at around 7:00.
Yeah.
And didn't have her until 10:11 and pumped me full of fluids. There was another family that was there with they started a home birth and had one of their babies and ended up having triplets that they didn't know they were having.
So they kind of took priority over you a little bit.
Yeah. So I was on the back burner and like I told you, I had lost 14 pounds up until when I gave birth and gained 11 pounds due to fluids.
Yeah.
Up until the C-section.
So she was born on when was she born?
She was born October the 2nd at 10:11 a.m.
Gotcha.
And she was due originally she was due September 19th.
And so once C-section happened, she came out at that point. Was there any relief or?
She came out and my husband was shocked. She was tiny. She was at 2.5 weeks late. She was 17.5 inches and she weighed 7 pounds, 7 ounces.
Yeah.
And he said, he looked at me, he said, baby's going to be fine. And they announced, her birth weight and her length and everything. And it just, in my head, 7 is a sign, that's a biblical thing. I just kind of thought, hey, there's 3 sevens. that's my thing. I'm a numbers person.
Yeah.
It's like, that's my sign, it's going to be okay. Everything's fine. It's going to be okay with her. And they let him hold her. And they said, don't be, it's okay. She's going to be pretty swollen just because of the fluid, because what mama gets, baby gets. Yeah. And she was a fluffy little basketball. She was so tiny and just the sweetest little bubbly. I was terrified and relieved and just thought, okay, from here on out, what are we going to do? And they put me in recovery and took me to the room, and hours passed. And a nurse came in that wasn't even our nurse. I went to school with her son, and she said, I'm going to tell you something, and I don't want you to be worried, but you haven't seen Jemma yet, and I'm going to tell you why. And again, here we go.
Yeah.
She said she has oxygen. She's might have a feeding tube. And I said, what do you mean? And I said, well, she aspirated when they tried to feed her. Strict instructions were, hey, she's going to be breastfed, bring her to me whenever else. Yeah. Well, they had tried to give her formula and she aspirated, and she said, well, it's probably because of her cleft palate.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
What I said, well, is that due to her achondroplasia? And they didn't know that. And so she said, wait a second, rewind. I said, what do you mean? She's like, well, they had to suction her because it could cause pneumonia and other things. She's like, but they're going to bring her in, but just, everything's okay. She said, but you need to take her to Vanderbilt because something's wrong.
Yeah.
So our pediatrician came in, and then the OB doctor came in, and they kind of discussed back and forth. He's like, listen, we don't know what's going on. And the pediatrician, we had informed him from the beginning. I picked him because I have a cousin that was born at 19 weeks at Vanderbilt, and he's been his physician and pediatrician the entire time. He was amazing. He said, I don't think it's any form of dwarfism, but something else is going on, and Vanderbilt is where you need to be.
Yeah.
So here we go, another shocker. So I was at the hospital, and they told us that we would go ahead and sign papers, and she would be transferred first thing Saturday morning. And they said, well, with you having a C-section and everything, you probably won't leave until Sunday night, maybe Monday.
Yeah.
I said, no, if she's going, I'm going.
Yeah.
And they said, well, you've got to walk and this. And I said, I'll run. I don't care. They said, well, with you having pain medications, I said, I'm not taking anything. I said, I'm good. I was like, my grandmother had natural birth. She didn't take pain medication. My mom had natural birth. I said, I'll be okay. I'll be fine. I said, I want to be as clear and coherent so I know what's going on, and I'm as prepared as I can possibly be to take care of my kid.
How do they transport a baby that small?
So she was in this massive, like a NICU pod, basically.
Gotcha.
And it had all of her machines and everything, and they took her by ambulance.
Okay. Gotcha.
And Brad and my mother-in-law followed up behind her, and they were there, and within a couple hours of being there, I got a picture, and she already didn't have oxygen. They had gotten her off the oxygen, and
that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, that was a good thing. So they said, her O2 levels were good, and she was stable and everything. Now she was in a not the most intensive care kind of NICU pod, but she was on there because they didn't have a diagnosis.
Yeah.
So he called me and he said, okay, well, so here's what we're doing. That's kind of trial and error with the baby that's born with a cleft palate. They obviously have issues feeding so you could have a cleft lip or cleft palate or both. Jemma was only missing the palate, which is when you put your tongue in the roof of your mouth, everything that's soft in the roof of your mouth, that wasn't there.
Gotcha.
So no tonsils, everything from behind your front teeth back was gone. So the issue that you have is you have to keep their tongue down so they can create some kind of a suction. So they tried 3 different bottles and finally found one. And the difference is it's the nipple of the bottle is kind of shaped like your finger, and it just kind of holds their tongue out enough. And what you do is they actually don't suck. They kind of just bite. So it just squeezes it enough. And so she took her first bottle, and they were in the pod, and she was doing better, and she was already down to just a little over 5 pounds. And they said, it was just fluid. So at birth, they said they estimated that her weight would have been about 17 and a half inches and maybe 5 pounds and an ounce. So we were up there, and they kind of went back and forth, and they were going through to see if she had any other signs of anything else. And a geneticist, went by the pod and making his rounds and stopped by and happened to ask if anyone had, seen her yet. And by that point, the pod she was in, we could visit, but you couldn't stay with them.
Yeah.
So they called us in from the waiting area, and he said, I want your permission to do testing because I'm pretty sure I know what Jemma has. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, so there's a thing called Stickler Syndrome. He said, but the sequence that I think she has is called Pierre-Robin sequence. So when Jemma was born, she had basically her jaw was completely retracted to where she really didn't have much of a chin. It just kind of, her facial profile was just straight down to her neck almost.
Gotcha.
And he said that's part of that sequence is a retracted jaw. Now it can grow or it might not, but that's just part of it. But he knew immediately by her facial structure that's what it was. She has kind of a flatter nasal bridge and some other things. So, and sure enough, he did the genetics testing, and within 2 days, he had confirmed that was the diagnosis. And then the flood of everything else that's affected by the syndrome kind of hit.
Was you relieved to find out that it wasn't dwarfism?
So
or was it just a nothing really different change?
So that's so with the Stickler syndrome, it does affect her height. Like right now, she's around 4'11".
Yeah.
And she's 15. And her little brother is now towering over at 5'3".
Right.
So, and it's not necessarily a negative thing for her because with our family, I'm the tallest female at like almost 5'6". Everyone else is, 4'11", 5 feet, 5'1", 5'2". So she's right in the mix of them.
Yeah.
But with the achondroplasia, there's just a different set of
things you'd have to worry about.
Obstacles.
Yeah.
Different obstacles that she might have to deal with and everything. As far as now with that, you can deal with, the bone issues and growth issues and things like that. But now with Stickler Syndrome, we were a week and a half in and she had already failed 3 hearing tests. And they came in there, they said, listen, so here's what we're going to have to do. You're going to have to come back if she's released, and we'll have to do a more in-depth test where she's asleep, and we'll see exactly what kind of hearing loss she has, and she might be completely deaf. So then I've been singing to this sweet baby the entire time I was pregnant, and, singing to her and, telling her stories and things like that. And then, heartbreak, it's, she's got all of this she's facing. And what if she never hears my voice?
Yeah.
What if she never hears her own baby's voice?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's like, what else? And then, there you go, back down. Once they found her diagnosis, they transferred us to a pod where we were able to stay in the room with her. And, it was one thing after the next. And it was a constant whirlwind and a kick in the tail every time they made their rounds. They're doctors. I know it's a learning hospital. I know the deal, they have to go through and let everyone know.
Very black and white.
And they would come in just kind of, she's a number. It's, baby girl Carroll, diagnosis this and this and this, blah, blah, blah. And it's just every time they came in, it was just a punch to the gut. Like, I know there's something wrong with my baby. What can we do to help her?
Yeah, you just feel helpless.
And by that point, they came in. I said, okay, here's my question. Because what they did is they were, she had a cannula in her nose. So we were allowed to give her a bottle, and I was pumping. So I was allowed to give her the breast milk and then compensate it with formula for, whatever volume she needed, because she was wasting more calories than she would take in if we didn't, compensate. So their thoughts were, okay, well, we'll increase the volume to make sure she gets enough calories. Well, what they would do is they would give us 10 to 15 minutes to allow her to try to feed. And then the rest of the volume would be pumped into her feeding tube. Well, after the third time, you pay attention. You're a parent, you pay attention. You see her heart rate go up. Her oxygen kind of dropped. I'm like, okay, she's about to regurgitate, and you can hear. So at that point, I'm like, I'm Googling to see, what volume normal 1 week and 2 week old babies are taking. And they had doubled and tripled the volume. And she's tiny.
Yeah.
So, trial and error that I said, listen, she's losing weight. They said, well, in order to go home, she has to constantly gain weight. I said, okay, well, here's the thing. She's taking this in, but then she's losing more than what she's taking in.
All right.
So upon Googling on my own, there was a formula that you could kind of almost like a vitamin supplement, kind of like you would do a protein powder.
Yeah.
To where it gives more calories without the volume. So the next doctor's round at 7:00 in the morning, I said, hey, listen, I found this online. Is this something we can do to where we can supplement the calories and decrease the volume to see if she just takes it? And I said, if we can't, that's fine. I understand you're the physicians. And they had no clue what I was talking about. I said, this is it.
Yeah.
This is where I found it. I said, I actually read it in a medical journal about, babies that had a hard time gaining weight. I've looked at it. I did my own little research. Yes, I'm just a mom. I don't have a degree, but here's my suggestion.
It's basically a mass gainer for babies.
Yeah. I said, so if we can try it, I'd appreciate it. Again, if it doesn't work, that's fine. I said, but at least, give us a day to just try. So the one doctor looked, he said, what do you suggest we decrease her volume to? I said, well, what's the average baby at 2 weeks taking that's around her size? And he said what it was. I said, okay, well, let's try that and just add the calories that you think she needs to gain.
Yeah.
Well, she stopped spitting up. She stopped regurgitating immediately after they started the formula, and she started to gain weight. Then they said, well, so here's what we have to do. We can't send her home with the cannula. I said, okay, well, can we have a Mickey button? It's a G tube, a feeding tube. And they were, well, why would you want your child to have surgery? I said, it's not that I want her to have surgery, but if this is a long-term thing and she's not going to be able to go home with the feeding tube like this, then we need to figure out what's going to get her home.
Yeah.
And they just kind of, we've never had somebody ask for a feeding tube. I said, well, I'm not asking. I need to know if that's an option and if that's something that's going to work. Because I can take care of that, and I have no problem going through that. And again, you're a mom, you're Googling, you're WebMD. Okay. So October 30th, she went home with a feeding tube with a Mickey button and instructions and everything else. And from then on, for an entire year, we fed her every 3 hours, and she actually went home with oxygen monitor. And anytime her tongue would kind of flip back to the back of her mouth, it would go off. So for that first year, I mean, the alarms nonstop, just beep, beep, beep. They said that what we should look at is, try to work on her positioning. So for the first year of her life, she slept at about a 45-degree angle, because that's actually what kept her oxygen at the best level, because when she would sleep, she was more raised up so her tongue would stay down. She would have a good rest all night long.
Once they released you, did they provide any resources or tools or therapy, anything, places for you, or you was just
Nope. It was here's your baby.
You just winged it.
Here's your baby. This is how you do CPR if something happens. Come back and see us in a month to check on her hearing and have fun.
But as far as like pediatrician, everything you stayed with the same one that she was going to see.
Our pediatrician has been an absolute. He's just an angel. Anytime she's had surgeries, he calls and checks on her. He's just.
It wasn't something special that you didn't have to go see a special one or anything.
So not necessarily for the pediatrics. We've had specialists for ENTs. We did Vanderbilt with all that, and then for vision, she got her first set of glasses when she was actually got her first set of glasses on my birthday in 2010, and tiniest little glasses I've ever seen in my life. But she got her first set of hearing aids. We found out that she had moderate to severe hearing loss at right around 2.5 months old. And she got her first hearing aids in January of 2010. At that point in time, people weren't worried about going viral so much then. But
yeah,
I mean, it replays in my head over and over again to see she has the biggest eyes I've ever seen. And it's actually one of the signs that, one of the things you look for is the size of the child's eyes. Which is very I have big eyes, but hers are bigger. The first time they put her hearing aids in and turned them on, they were kind of quiet, and she turned around and I said, "Hey, baby," and her eyes got so wide, and it just
wow. That was the first time she could hear you for like completely, or
yep,
was it blurry
that
up
was
until
the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first clear.
And she did the same thing when we got her glasses, and so Jemma has severe myopia, so up close she sees okay.
Yeah.
But pretty much 5 inches beyond, it's a blur.
Yeah.
And we got her glasses, and they said, we don't want to put them on her. We're going to let you put them on her. So they said, go ahead and let her face you and put them on her. And same exact thing.
How old was she then?
That was let's see, October, November, December. 7 months, 8 months along. 8 months, maybe 8.5.
And the hearing was
in January.
Gotcha.
So she was a little over 3 months old.
Gotcha. So at 3 months hearing, and then 8 months clear vision.
Yeah, and it just and I see people all the time comment on different Facebook groups we found to kind of chime in with, and to kind of go through and say, hey, what are these things that you deal with? How do you work with this and everything? And parents are like, oh my gosh, my kid's 5 years old. I can't get him to get his hearing aids in. How do you keep their glasses on? And I still have Jemma's first set of hearing aids. She's on her third set of hearing aids. She never broke a pair of glasses. We had glasses that she wore for so long and wore them so often that the eyepiece would just, kind of break off, or the screw would fall out. So she never lost a pair of glasses, never lost a set of hearing aids, never broke any glasses, never broke any hearing aids. The very first time she actually had a pair of glasses that broke to any fault of ours or hers was when she played basketball last year in 8th grade and got an elbow to the face. And that's the very first time she's ever had. That was the very first time. And she's never, we always, with her, we haven't said, get your glasses, get your hearing aids. It's, do you have your eyes and ears on? Because we didn't want it to, being little, I didn't want to establish a difference between her and us. This you see with your eyes, you hear with your ears. And it was just kind of a natural thing. Like, let's get your eyes and ears. And to this day, it's, I catch myself now to 15 years old, you have your eye, you have glasses. It's just a habit. And it kind of, again, I wanted as much normalcy as possible. So with her being little, she didn't feel like, oh, well, I'm different than Bubba because this is what I have to see. It's just, those are your eyes, those are your ears. That's how we see, that's how we hear.
So as far as the hearing, the vision, what are all diagnoses different? Some have mixtures of the disabilities more than the others.
So depending on which variation, she has the mutation that has everything. So
Gotcha.
different versions can have just hearing loss. Different versions can have just vision problems. Different ones, it just which variation and to what degree. So with Stickler syndrome, it's a progressive disorder. So if she has something that's at a level now, it may stay the same.
Yeah.
Or it may get worse. But there's nothing that will get better.
There's nothing that'll get better.
So her hearing to begin with was moderate. Moderate to severe. And now it's severe to profound. A different issue that she has with Stickler syndrome, it's, vision problems, hearing problems, anything with connective tissue. So her joints, she has aches and pains. And with a child that's always, she's been poked and prodded since the first day she was born.
Yeah.
So as far as facial structure, the term that her ENT liked to use was maxillofacial abnormalities. So she has sinus issues. She has inner ear issues. She's had tubes. And believe it or not, most kids get tubes because they have hearing ear infections. Jemma never had an ear infection until after she got her first set of tubes. Jemma never complained anytime she was sick. And for a while, it was odd. And I felt like I was missing something because she would be completely fine and be running a fever of 103. And I'd take her and they're like, hey, she's got severe double ear infections. And I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? How am I not, there's no other sign. Well, her pediatrician said, the thing that they find with some kids that have syndromes or different, medical issues and things like that is that they get so used to not feeling well that it's normal.
That's their normal.
So they have a high pain threshold because they're so used to not feeling pain.
Yeah.
So he said for her, it was normal to just feel that way. So when she felt that way, she didn't think to say, Mommy, I don't feel good.
I was going to say,
that broke my heart.
I never even had a clue, that anything was quote unquote wrong with her or anything up until I told you all that I was doing a podcast about parents of kids with special needs. And then you said that you want to be on it. And I was thinking I thought
for
maybe,
what?
Yeah, I thought, does she work with special needs or like, so I would have had no clue that there was anything, like I said, quote unquote wrong with her. Cause she worked out, she did the workouts, she ate the food just like anybody else would.
And that's, you can sit down with her and she's so grown up and it breaks my heart to think about it. She's more comfortable around adults than she is kids just because of the judgment, things like that. For a while, she had so many surgeries. Her first surgery, she had a detached retina. Again, it's a connective tissue thing. So she can have a spontaneous retinal detachment, which happened when she was 4 years old.
Yeah.
She played t-ball with her little brother. They were on the same team that spring. And then in fall, they tried soccer.
Yeah.
Again, we know risk, there were, you can't put your kid in a bubble.
Yeah.
But you still will try to protect them whatever way you can. And so they had their first little soccer game and everything was fine. 2 or 3 days later, we're sitting there with Jemma because she actually qualified for preschool at the age of 3 on a deafblind status. She participated in Kentucky First Steps.
Yep. We did too.
And the bad thing was she got sign language, Braille, and occupational therapy for feeding issues.
Yep.
Her Braille instructor was amazing. And she said, we try to let them learn, 2 to 3 signs a week, a month or so. And at a year and a half, 2 years old, Jemma was learning 30 and 40 signs a month.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And she went through, she's like, I don't know what else to do. We're doing this. She's like, cognitively, she said, she's just
surpassing everything.
So we got to 2.5 years old and they were doing evaluations. They're like, we've got to do this, but we're kind of sad because she's going to test out. I said, you can test out. She's like, yeah, because overall,
they can be too. Yeah, she's smart.
Once you put the score in, she said her occupational therapy needs for feeding issues and difficulties and things like that are not going to be enough to balance out to where it would keep her at the level she needed to be. So cognitively, behaviorally, motor wise, she tested at like 5 and 6 year old level as far as those. And feeding, it didn't even. It was they actually came and said, and they're like, we're really sorry, we don't know what to do. Just good thing is she's gonna get get to go to preschool at 3, and it was like they were kind of heartbroken because they knew what she needed.
Yeah.
So, but that's the first time that we had any assistance or anyone to kind of say, hey, you let us know what you need. We'll get you what we can.
Yeah.
So from then on, we worked with speech. We was working with her with adding, subtracting, writing her name. She was learning our address, learning phone numbers and things like that. And we found that the best way to get her to learn was by singing songs. And because it kind of stopped her and it kind of intrigued her. And the difference is with singing, sometimes she could hear a different pitch better.
Yeah.
Or if I would normally say something in a different tone, she might hear it, or it might click in a different way to where when you sing, you might move your mouth a different way that she wasn't normally used to being able to do.
Yeah.
And it also helped with her moving her muscles after she had her first palate surgery at 1 year old, because when they take all of the tissue from the roof of your mouth to create that palate, they stretch everything.
Does she take collagen by chance? Is it supplemented into her? I probably should have asked that long ago, but yeah.
So that was the thing. I had asked different doctors back and forth, and they said, well, we just don't really know if there's enough study done on it and everything else. But
I would start adding it in if you haven't.
I figured, okay, if you have an issue with a collagen deficiency, why would you not supplement it?
Yeah.
But they had never. I don't want to go out on a whim and say, oh yeah, I'm going to give her this, I'm going to give her that. But I mean, if there's something that even that that would be something that would be good for her to use.
Yep.
I would rather deal with someone that knows what they're talking about with health and wellness and things like that than just.
I just happen. We can sidebar that conversation, but I just happen to think of it now as you was talking about the connective tissue stuff. I just happen to think, because I recommend collagen to almost all of my women clients, especially a lot of them that are in their 60s or more. But yeah, we can do that sidebar. But I just happen to think of it now that if they would even I thought that would have been one of the first things they'd recommended to add to her, daily intake.
With the surgeries and things, she had the first surgery, which was multiple. She had tubes in her ears. The cleft palate was repaired at 1 year old, and the feeding tube was removed. And then after that, she's had tubes put in every time they fall out. But that first retinal detachment was where it kind of went downhill for her.
Yeah.
She had the first attachment, and we learned a lot. That was September of 2013. Yeah, 2013. She was 4.
Yeah.
Until November the 4th of 2015, we had 17 procedures.
17 just for eyesight?
Just for that one. The first procedure was to repair the retina in the left eye and to reattach it, and for prophylactic, which is basically preventative laser surgery to the right eye. So they basically just go in and kind of dot laser to where it creates scar tissue, so it kind of strengthens it.
Gotcha.
And the way that we were kind of, the way they explained it to us was basically her tissue in her eye with the retina. It's basically like wet toilet paper. So the more that you mess with it,
the weaker it's going to get.
And the more layers there are, it's very risky. And you're each time you're less likely to gain any vision back. And there were several different procedures. What they did is they went in, they created the laser. They created the scar tissue with the laser.
Yeah.
And she had a scleral buckle to begin with, which is basically just kind of holds it tight. We went back in the day after, and it was attached. We went back in the week after, and it was detached. So we had to have surgery the next day. They went back in, did the surgery again, and they put an air bubble in to kind of give it that support. So what happens is, as the time goes on, the air bubble dissipates and just kind of disappears. They did the air bubble, and same thing. Lasted a week. Lasted the second week. We went in for another checkup, and they said, "Hey, you know what? It's detached again." We're like, what are we doing? So each time we would take her home, depending on where the detachment had occurred, because it could have a small tear, it could completely detach, but depending on where the detachment was, there would be a specific position she would have to lay in to make sure that that bubble, or whatever it was, would allow the correct amount of pressure
Good
to
grief.
give it support. And in order to keep her in that position from September until November the next year, I slept with her propped up with a wedge with my arm under it. And anytime she would turn, I
You'd
woke
have
up
to turn.
immediately.
You'd have to turn her back.
So for a year and over a year, it was kind of like mom zombie mode. Like, I'm here, I'm awake, I'm alive,
That's
but
crazy. How old was
it's a
she
blur.
then?
She was 4 years old until right after her 5th birthday.
Now, at that 17th one, was that the last one she's had up until now, or she had more since
So
then?
so this November we will actually be celebrating 9 years that it's been reattached. And what happened that last surgery, her doctor came to us, he said, and he's, again, we've been so blessed that we've had the physicians and the specialists that we have. And it's just, he came to us, he said, listen, he's like, I'm going to treat her just like my own child.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know why things have happened the way they have. He said, God has a plan for Jemma. The minute he said that surgery, same way, when we were at our last OB appointment, it hit. I said, it's going to be okay if it doesn't work out. He said, if this one doesn't stay, he said, our goal now is no longer to try to salvage her sight. He said, because with the amount of scar tissue there's probably not going to be any vision. He said, we just are hoping and praying that we can keep her eye healthy. And I
Yep.
said, what's the plan after that? He said, if it detaches again, he said they would have to look at removing her eye. And at that point, I'm just kind of thinking, we've come so far,
Yeah.
and each time, after each surgery, they're like, do little tests for her, and, see if she can see light, see if she can see your fingers, or like, can you see 2 fingers? What can you see? Can you see over here?
Yeah.
And to know, this is my sweet baby.
What
And
is
we're at
her
this point to where
what is her vision right now?
she is completely blind in her left eye. She
Even
has no vision.
even with
And
glasses on?
with it, she used to have light sensitivity, but because there's so much scar tissue, if you sit down with her, like, she could come here right now and you can tell the difference in her eye. There's so much scar tissue in her left eye that the pupil area is actually gray, and she's very self-conscious about it. And one of the kids at school last year, she's been with him since 6th grade. He looked at her and he said, "Oh my God, what's wrong with your eye?" And she said, "What do you mean?" And one of her friends was like, she's blind. And he said,
Yeah.
no, you're not. She's like, yeah, I'm completely blind in my left eye. For 2.5 years, she didn't tell anyone. We moved from Hopkinsville to Trigg County in July 2020. And they were virtual for their first year of us moving.
Yeah.
And when we moved, it was, whole new school, all new friends, everything else. She never told me. She didn't tell the friends that, she had hearing aids. She had no vision. She didn't tell them, anything about her. She said they hadn't been with me this entire time. She said, I don't want them to base, their opinion of me off of what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Because that kind of, she was looked at as, oh, the little kid that's broken,
Yeah.
where we used to go to school, it's Jemma couldn't have PE. Jemma couldn't have recess. For 3 years, we had to give her a box for recess and for PE. And, she had to do puzzles and things like that, because anything that would cause an increased heart rate would risk, the retinal detachment, because the heart rate causes the pressure to increase and things. And then in 2017, she had a pharyngeal flap repair, because she was actually having some issues with a reflux. And we had a random physician. I had commented on it several times. They said, "Oh, kids that have a speech problem
I
and
think I lost you
a
again.
cleft palate, and hearing problems, sometimes speak nasally." I said, "Well, there's a difference in speaking, with a nasal sound." I said, "When she eats things that are rich or things that are acidic or chocolate things," I said, you will actually see, some of it come out of her nose." They're like, "Oh yeah, that's normal." Well, ENT happened to hear her say a word one day, and he asked her. He said, "Hey, Jemma, what's going on? What you doing?" And she said, "Oh, I'm watching Netflix." And when she hit that X, he heard air come out of her nose, and he knew immediately that something was wrong. And he said, I'm going to check something. I'm going to send you for a milk study. Here we go again. I said, what do you mean? He said, that sound she made, does she do that often? I said, yeah, I mean, that's part of her speech. With speech with school, they'd said the same thing. Oh yeah, it's with, they called it deaf speech. I said, that's not deaf speech. There's extra air there. That's not a deaf speech thing. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, we had a surgery for her to have a pharyngeal flap repair. And it was so odd to have a child at that age have that they didn't have a diet plan to put in place for her. So she had that done October 30th and was spending Halloween at Vanderbilt at the Children's Hospital. And they came upstairs and, they're like, hey, do you want some milk? Do you want this? And I said, that's probably not the best thing. If you have a sore throat, which she had from being intubated and everything else, is I don't think you don't really want milk and things like that in your throat. They said, well, the diet that we have is for babies.
How old was she at this time?
She was 8.
Gotcha.
8 years old. And I said, well, I don't understand. She's like, well, they normally do this in babies. And I guess, the surgeon that you had just didn't check back up with you guys because it should have been done about 6 months to a year after her cleft palate surgery.
Wow.
And I said, oh, really? She's like, yeah, which is kind of odd because it's Vanderbilt. I said, yeah, you're telling me.
Talking about dropping the ball.
I said, so what do we do? She's like, well, I mean, just really, really, very liquid diet, very plain diet. If it can be liquefied and strained, that's what you're going to have to do. I said, how am I going to be able to? So we had an issue with her not only just gaining weight, but just maintaining weight when she was small because she couldn't eat enough calories. She said, well, I mean, Pediasure. And sure, I said, that's a lot of sugar. That can't be healthy either. She's 8 years old. So I spoke with a friend of ours that was a dietitian. I said, listen, we're in the hospital. Jemma's had surgery. They're going to make her eat something, and they don't have anything for her to eat. I said, what do I do? She said, well, go get a can of some kind of vegetable soup or vegetable broth or whatever. She said, strain that and just let her have the broth. She's like, do that, for however many meals she's got to have. Yeah. I said, she's like, as long as she can take that, it'll give her a little bit. And she said, she helped me work out a meal plan for her. And it hit me that when I looked at the after surgery, report and everything, she had to have this diet tray until she was released. That was October.
Yeah.
It would be at least 6 months until she was released.
So she was eating liquid diet for half a year.
She had a liquid diet. So I looked at her that day and I told Brad, I said, listen, it's like, I said, they didn't prepare us going in or anything. I said, we stopped at the store on the way home. I said, I don't know what we're going to do, because she kind of had a specific diet already because of how
she was eating other stuff.
She had been accustomed to what she knew. She had changed. Jemma's she adapts without saying anything.
Yeah.
So she had said in the beginning, she said, I didn't really like eating spaghetti. She's loved Alfredo noodles forever. Well, she didn't really like spaghetti. And she didn't tell me why. She said, well, it really burns my nose and my throat when I eat it. Well, that's the reflux. Again, children that have issues with, being poked and prodded and things like that are constantly in pain, just get used to it.
Yeah.
So she really didn't enjoy spaghetti or even eat it until after she had that surgery.
After she had it, then she could.
Yep. And she really didn't like milk or chocolate milk. And it was just that kind of whole issue. And,
does anything upset her now, or she pretty much,
some of it is just a preference to where I think she got used to not eating. She doesn't really eat any kind of sauce. And some of that was just because of the sodium and things like that. They said that the sodium and salt content would have aggravated. So
yeah, that's a good thing.
She does not like condiments at all. The only thing she does, it's Alfredo sauce, spaghetti sauce, and yum yum sauce. But that's the only kind of sauces that she eats. And I told my husband, I said, so here's what we're going to do. I said, that's a lot for a kid. I said, after everything she's gone through up to this point, I said, I can't sit here. And she was going to have to go back to school. And I said, she can't have a school lunch. So I worked it out with the teachers. I said, listen, Jemma has to have a very, very modified diet. I said, whatever I make her to eat is going to have to be warmed up. I said, I will put whatever I can in a thermos, but it's going to have to be created just for her. And it's going to have to work out. So I kind of told him, I said, listen, I said, it might be hard. I said, but whatever Jemma eats is what I'll eat until she's done. And he said, well, what do you mean? I was like, if that's what she's eating, it's what I'll eat. I said, if it's pureed vegetables and beef, I said, then we'll be eating what looks like baby food until whenever.
Yep.
And we did. And it's whatever she ate, I ate. I would try a recipe, and I was like, listen, if it doesn't taste good, I'm not going to say, oh, well, you've just got to eat it. So I Googled recipes and bought a Ninja blender and bought a strainer, and we were using an Instapot. And I mean, if it could be blended, it could be pureed, it could be strained, it could be, I mean, we did it.
So
And she made it through it. And
you've pretty much been on pins and needles, and then basically a full-time caretaker that is changing the way you're taking care quite frequently. You've pretty much done that for the last, up until recently, or still at least the last 10 years, the first 10 years of her life or so, right?
even still, so sometimes, because if it's not something that if it's not her diet, then it's, I told you how she has sinus issues. Well, Jemma has sinus issues. She has issues with fluid in her ears, even though she has tubes. Doesn't matter regardless. So,
Yeah.
most kids, you think, oh yeah, it's fall, let's go play in the leaves. Not
Can't do
Jemma.
it.
Can't play in the leaves. Anything that, because Jemma can go from a runny nose to a sinus infection overnight. Sinus infection turns directly into an ear infection. Jemma's already at a severe to profound hearing loss with hearing aids. Jemma gets fluid in her ears, and it's basically go underneath the water in a swimming pool and go to the bottom of like a 4-foot pool.
That pressure.
And try to hear someone above the water.
Yeah.
So you really can't hear. You can kind of hear almost like a Charlie Brown teacher.
Yeah.
So when Jemma has fluid, she has that additional pressure. Plus, it's almost like going under the water and putting your fingers in your ears and then trying to hear. So even with hearing aids,
Yeah.
her 7th grade year, she missed 2.5 weeks of school during her birthday because she was completely deaf. Couldn't wear hearing aids, couldn't hear anything. We couldn't get rid of her ear infections and the fluid in her ears. Couldn't do it. They switched. She was on 3 different antibiotic ear drops, and that's the thing. The kid's on medicine. She never misses a drop, never, no matter how funky it is. Never misses ear drops. Just gets used to it.
That's crazy.
And just deals with it. But she knows, hey, I can't have a bonfire. She loves candles. Can't burn a candle.
Can't do it.
Loves the smell of candles. There's just little things you don't think about.
No, I would never think of something like that.
Mowing the yard. We live in
the
the country. We have a ton of trees on our property. You mow the leaves. Most people, oh, let's let the air outside in. People are mowing. I've got to leave the windows closed because I want Jim to be able to hear and go to school.
Yeah.
And it's, things that, I mean, even she, just knowing that everything can be spontaneous and can be a random change. She wakes up sometimes in the middle of the night, and she's like, I know this is a few weeks ago. She's like, I'm 14 years old. She said, but sometimes, I kind of want to sleep with a nightlight. Well, she wakes up, and you can normally see in her room because of how her room is kind of situated in our property, and she can see. Sometimes it's very, very black, and she said, she'll wake up and be terrified sometimes because here I go again. She'll wake up and not be sure if she's lost the rest of her vision.
Yeah.
And she said, she kind of freaks out, and she'll look for anything that she can kind of see that
to reassure.
But to know that her friends are waking up and they're going to school, and they get to fuss about, I've got practice again today. They get to fuss. I mean, Jemma's waking up every day. And she's waking up every day, and she's like, oh yay, I have vision still in one of my eyes, somewhat good. Oh, I can see with my glasses, like just simple things. And she since she had that one little rec league soccer game, she didn't play sports anymore just because of the extreme risk involved.
Yeah, that's not worth it at all. Is her balance okay or not?
So so that was the weird thing about when she lost her vision. They we had a Braille instructor that had talked to us, and she said, we'd really like to have Jemma use a walking cane or to get used to, this or that, or, have someone help her at school. So she was supposed to have someone that kind of assisted her to make sure she wouldn't run into things. And she just blows my mind. Her balance is fine. She's at 4 and 5 years old. She walked around. You could tell again, my little, she just evolves just right in front of your eyes.
She's a superhero.
She would walk, and she would intentionally turn her head to where she could see. I mean, imagine, you're walking, you don't see anything on this side.
Yeah.
Well, she walks in the hallways at school, and even in Hopkinsville, they could stay on the red line. We'd have kids that walk by her. You don't see anything from, the bridge of your nose over.
Yeah.
So you could pick up on Jemma. She would turn her head slightly to where she could see enough to where she would see kids coming around, and she would just she never asked for help either, ever.
Yeah.
And when she does, you know that she really needs it.
She really needs something. Yep.
And never complains. And again, if she's complaining, if she says, "Hey, this hurts,"
something's really wrong. Hurt. Yeah, because all she's known is struggle. As far as like you said, as far as like going forward or as she ages, there's never a chance that things will get better, but there's always a risk of things getting worse. Does that apply for all the symptoms, or just the hearing, or just or everything?
Everything.
Gotcha. Is there, as far as like upcoming surgeries, is there any more scheduled?
So she'll have another surgery to replace the tubes in her ears coming up, and then we go back. We have appointments with her eye specialist every 6 months just to double check to make sure everything's still healthy, everything's still attached, everything looks good, and everything is exactly where it needs to be. Other than that, I mean, when we go back, to her eye specialist, he says, he's like, things are looking healthy, and each time he said, things are developing. He said, they have different prosthetics that are actually, they're working on artificial parts of your eye for this and for that. And he's, he's like, I've got hope. He said, but the things are developing. He said, he's like, I have faith. He's like, Jimmy, he's like, I know you will see again one day. And so she
That's
just,
awesome.
we pray, and she's like, that's one thing she honestly says. She's like, I don't know when. She's like, but I know that, God will give me my vision back. She's like, it'll be in his time. But she tries to hold on to anything and everything that she can, and experience anything and everything that she can.
Yeah.
And what happened last year is, little brother plays baseball. He's, one sport kind of kid, just lives it, loves it, breathes it. If it's got stitches on it, and he's got a bat and a ball, he's fine.
Yeah.
And with her, it's seeing her kind of go along and kind of coach and cheer him on and things like that, and fuss at umpires and things. And I mean, she learns the rules. She knows the insides and outsides and everything. And I've kind of talked to her back and forth. As sometimes the best coaches are the best coaches because maybe they didn't have the opportunity to play. So it gave them that passion, that drive. They want to put that much more into people so they can be what they couldn't. And she came to me last year, and she talked to Brad and I, and she said, so Daddy played basketball in high school and everything. And she said, I want to play basketball. And I just was kind of shocked. I said, what do you mean? She said, I want to try for basketball. And I said, I don't know if that's good, sweetheart. She said, well, she's like, I want you, Daddy, to think about it. And she said, I want you to pray about it. And she's like, I prayed about it. And I think that if it's meant for me to make it, it'll be okay. And just, God will look out for me. She said, I know what to do. She's like, but, she said, I'll be in high school next year. And if I have a chance to play, she said, this will be the year. She's like, because once I get to high school, that's not going to be it. Now, she played upwards for 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And they let her play down. That way she was with the kids that were a little less aggressive, and because of her size.
Yeah.
And she actually played, for Special Olympics. But again, it was very limited, and they kind of worked around her limitations and things like that. And so she did what she was able to do, which was great for her. And, got some of that. But she said, she's like, I want to try to be, part of a school team. And, she thought that maybe that would give her a way to connect with the other kids that had been together since, preschool.
Yeah.
And I was a nervous wreck. I just, just the impact on her joints. And when she started, 6th grade here at Trigg, that school is 2 stories. And, going up the stairs every day, 3 weeks in, she was complaining about knee joint and her shoulders hurting. And we had to go to a rheumatologist, and they're like, it's not severe enough to say it's arthritis, but she should probably be on, some kind of medication or ointment. So she's at 12 and 13 years old using arthritis cream, taking a leave.
It's
And
crazy.
I said, how long has this been hurting? She said, well, I hurt all the time, but it's just gotten worse. And I said, why didn't you tell me? She's like, well, man, I just got used to it. I didn't know that. She's like, do you not hurt all the time? I said, no, baby. No,
Yeah.
not
That's not
unless
supposed
I've
to
worked
happen.
out to cause that pain.
Yeah.
I said, mine's muscle pain, not, joint pain. She's like, no, my shoulders hurt, my knees hurt, my ankles hurt. So one of the first things that the rheumatologist said, he's like, listen, he's like, pay attention to the shoe she wears. He said, you need to take her and get her gait analyzed, and they'll tell her the shoe she needs to wear. And he's like, that'll help some. Sure enough, that alleviated some of the pain and issues and everything. But once she started, we prayed about it, and I told Brad, I said, listen, I said, I'm just going to pray that if it's God's will that she'll make it, and if she doesn't, then it's just, he's going to close the door on it. And she went and she put every single bit of everything she had, and she was exhausted after conditioning it. And she came home and she was like, I ran this, I ran that, and shorter than everybody else on the team, legs shorter than everybody else on the team, but she hustled. She gave everything she had. She's just,
It's awesome. How long ago was this?
This was just last year.
So okay, gotcha. That's what I thought, because I was going to ask you one of the questions I ask everybody. I always like to end on a high vibe, a good note. But I was going to say, what's something recent that she's done that's been incredible or a blessing, something. So you answered it before I even got to ask it, because I was thinking that was pretty recent.
Yeah. So they had conditioning for a couple of weeks, and she was coming home, and she was, taking her water to school, and she was working out, and she's, I'd pick her up, I'd say, how was, she's like, oh, good, I'm tired, and, soaked in an Epsom salt bath, and she'd use the Voltaren, take the leave, she'd get up and go the next day. She didn't miss a single day of conditioning, not a single day.
That's
Came
awesome.
to tryouts, and
she's like Rudy.
she's like, she said, so I think I did really good. The coaches said, I gave everything I had. They constantly said, Jemma, you've got so much fight in you. We wish everybody else would put that much effort in. And they came to see the list, and she didn't make the team.
Yeah.
And she was heartbroken. And they came to her and they said, you didn't make the team. We'd like for you to be our manager. And, she was, you have that defeated
kind of setback.
You could just see, she knew it was her chance. And she originally said, she's like, no, she said, my goal was to make the team. She said, I didn't make the team. She said, so she's like, I'm just going to consider, that's just, it's not what God wanted for me. And I said, are you sure? And she's like, I'm sure. I said, well, baby, what if, like I said, some of the best coaches, didn't necessarily get the chance to play the sport. And she said, I'll think about it. And so I talked to her daddy, and he said, here's what we're going to do. He said, we'll support her whatever she does. He said, but he said, she chooses to be the manager. He said, she's gonna be the best manager they've ever had. He said, she's gonna walk the walk. She's gonna talk the talk. She's gonna be the part. He said, she's gonna be a manager. Like, she's gonna dress like the coaches do. And we gave her a couple of days to think about it. And she came and she said, I'll do it. She said, because if that'll make me part of the team, then that's what I'll do.
Yeah. Still part of the team.
Okay, are you sure? So she made that commitment. We took her and got her gloves and got her the shoes and everything, got her a couple of shirts, and she came home with her binder, and she was on the plays, and she came home after every practice, and she's like, I don't understand, Mama. She said, we're supposed to run this play, and it's a 3-2, and it's a man, and she would go through the plays with her daddy, and they're sitting here talking, and I'm like, I played soft. What are you talking about? Like,
that's awesome.
I hit a ball and I would catch a ball. Like, what are these plays? And I would see her, play with them. She's like, well, this is man on man, and this is this. And he said, well, baby, when they do this, they can do that. And just seeing her knowledge grow and seeing everything she was taking in, she was like, yeah, no, I was conditioning with the girls, and I was passing the ball and trying to get them to understand this play and that play, and just to see the little coach that was kind of blossoming. So she did that for a couple of weeks, and they had the first game, and she was manager the first game, and they had the second game. She was a manager for that, and I got a phone call, and she said, hey, when you pick me up, I want to talk to you. I said, what's wrong? She's like, they added another girl to the team. And I was like, what do you mean they added another girl to the team? So it's only like an 11-minute drive, but it was the longest 11 minutes, kind of like that 42 and a half week mark. Here I am like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So I get to the school, and the coach is outside. I'm like, oh no, she's upset. The coach had to calm her down. And I pull up, and it's dark, and my headlights hit her, and she turns around, and she got a jersey in her hands.
Yeah, she made
it. And the coach comes up and she said, I wanted to come out here and tell you with Jemma. She said, this little stink has practiced. She's learned everything. She's helping coach the girls. She's correcting them. She's like, she's been with everything. She did everything. She said she didn't make the team to begin with. She said she fought her way on the team. She said she's going to start tomorrow night. And I was done.
Good for her.
I was done. Awesome. And she played and gave it everything she had. And she ended up winning 2 awards. She got, 110% effort and, best defensive player. And ended up joking to the season. They called her the Bruiser.
That's awesome.
And
good for her. I didn't know that.
They said the funny thing was, they said they look at her and they go, Jemma, go get the ball. And halfway through the season, like I said, Jemma's not even 5 feet tall, but you can ask my mother and father-in-law here now. I mean, she would be with the tallest girl or the most aggressive girl, and they go back and forth. And Jemma was on the ground. She was fighting for the ball. Yeah. And I asked her, I said, I said, you're not worried? She's like, no. She said, that's what I'm there for. She said, she's like, I want everybody else to know that, that's what we're supposed to do. She's like, you're out there to play. And the thing that ended up, kind of, it was good for her and it was bad at the same time. Built her up and let her know that, even through all the pain and everything else she's dealt with and everything, that she put her mind to it and she fought her way on it. She earned that. I didn't do it for her. Brad didn't do it for her. She did that.
She did all on her own.
But at the same time, even 2 of her own teammates made fun of her because of the way she runs. She's got bad joints. She's got shorter legs. She runs funny, but it doesn't matter how funny she runs. Again, with the shortest legs, she's the first one down the court. She doesn't care, that she's got goggles on. She's going to go get the ball. It's her job to get the ball. She might not get to shoot the ball or, whatever else. But
you just tell her put her blinders on and don't worry about those people.
And we were every team that we played, even their 8th graders, their varsity players, they were on video making fun of her, and she realized that you can be a part of a team. Or you can, it was good for her to be in that. But I think at the same time, I think it maybe showed some of them that if only one girl or one adult took something from it, Jemma never once complained to them about her pain or, whatever else. And even when they played in Murray and the girl elbowed her in the face, she's like, give me some tape. I'll go back out. I said, baby, your glasses are broken. You're done. Yeah. She's got blood coming off her eye. And I was like, there's nothing else. Even that, she was like, that was the game we were going to win. She said, I can do it. I was like, you can't see if you don't have your glasses. And just to know that she knew the kids were making fun of her and she still did it. Yeah. She knows the pain she's in and she still deals with it. She can't hear even with her hearing aids in sometimes. And she still fights, to read lips and things like that. But she never is going to tell you about the struggle. She just does it.
She's a fighter.
It's the little things like that, I have a migraine. I'm like, oh, my head hurts, and I'm thinking, shut up. I've got a headache. Jemma's, her knees hurt, her arms hurt. She can't hear, she can't see, going to school after surgery and stuff. I'm like, get up. You've got a headache, whatever. Yep. Oh, your muscles hurt. Oh, you don't want to work out because your muscles hurt. Well, Jemma's muscles and everything else hurts
all day, every day.
For all those months. And she worked out and she played basketball and never said a word about it. Didn't miss school or anything. I'm like, just get over it, lady. Yep. So it's kind of,
it humbles you.
Really. Yeah. And it's just like, I still look at her and see that tiny little baby and, just kind of not knowing what she had in store for her, but, seeing now everything she's overcome. It's just, I know that whatever she chooses to do, she's going to exceed. Yep. And just
no question about it.
There's no doubt she's going to excel in whatever she does.
So what piece of advice or what, if a mother or father just finding out, that their child has Stickler Syndrome or even, what you all originally thought of the dwarfism, what piece of advice or what would you say to your former self, 14 years ago to that parent that's, just finding out this news or just starting their path on it? What's one thing that you could, end us on as far as keeping somebody going in the right direction and head up?
Don't let things discourage you before they start.
That's good.
Don't let it overwhelm you. You have to take things in stride. And first thing, whether you're religious or not, I mean, I've learned the hard way, I'm not in control.
Yep.
And the minute that I turn it over, I have to let God work things out in his time. And that's for everything because, I stress about it. It doesn't do anything. Jemma stresses out about it. It doesn't do anything. It just causes more aggravation, things like that. It just, all you can do is learn and grow. Some things you can change, some things you can't. The things you can't change, focus on the things you can.
Yep.
Work on the things that you can work on, and kind of like with this whole journey with you and everything. Like Jemma saw when I did the challenge with you last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't win things. I don't ever.
You've won twice now.
I could play the lottery and my father-in-law could not play.
The lottery.
I guessed all the numbers.
The lottery's luck. You just haven't found the right thing to put your energy towards yet. Well, until now,
and that's that was the thing. Just for that first challenge. That 2 weeks. And for me, it's always been. I've never made myself a priority, and having.
Well, you didn't really. Life seasons, I wouldn't say you didn't make yourself a priority. You just made something else, keeping your daughter alive a priority.
And, kind of everything else that's around it, but just kind of seeing the difference that original, 2 weeks made, just thinking, going just, and that's the thing. That's what was, so important about those pictures. You see the beginning and you see the next week, and you see the next week. So to kind of, go through that then, and then to kind of apply that throughout the year. And then to, when you had the second challenge coming up, and, Jemma happened to see when I was watching your video, and when she said, hey, is that something I can do? I was like, hey, don't, if he says you can do it, it's not a matter of if you can't, if you join in, like,
I didn't even know she had a disability, which I think makes it cooler that I just now found out, a couple weeks ago.
I said, there's no doubt in my mind. I said, I don't know how if your muscles are going to be different. I said, I don't know how it's going to work with your joints and stuff. But I said, whatever. I said, if there's an exercise that hurts, we'll do like you've done. I said, we've adapted. I said, so if the squats hurt your knees, we'll do something else. I said, if the mountain climbers hurt, we'll do something. I said, we'll just work on more planks. So work on your core.
Yep.
So she still adapts, and she still works through it. And to kind of see, I see her going back and forth. She's like, oh, I feel like I've gained weight. I said, we're not talking about weight.
She don't need to lose any weight.
I said, do you feel healthier?
Yeah.
Are you drinking more water? I said, what we're going to focus on. I said, I'm not worried about you losing weight. I said, our goal, I said, you never say, I want to be skinny, I want to lose weight. I said, you need to be healthy.
Yeah. Be healthy, feel good.
That's all I'm focused on.
Yeah.
I said, so if you have more energy and you feel better, I said, when's the last time you used Voltaren, which is the arthritis cream?
Yeah.
She said, I don't know. I said, there's a win right there, because you were doing that every day.
Yeah.
I said, so the fact that you're drinking more water, eating healthier, less sugar, more water, that's less inflammation. I said, it's already better for you. I said, less inflammation, that affects your ears, that affects everything.
Yeah. I
said, so overall, I said, and the thing is too, I was like, food affects your attitude and everything else that goes along with it. And you can see, they had the first day back at school today from fall break, and she said, I just kind of feel different. She said, I just kind of feel like renewed. I said, what do you mean? She said, I don't know, I just kind of feel better. I said, what feels different? She's like, I just feel like I have energy. And she said, what I realized today? I said, what? She said, I'm smart. I said, do what? She's like, I'm smart. I said, honey, I've known that you're smart. And she said, I'm just kind of realizing things about myself. I said, what do you mean? She said, I'm worth something. And I was like, that's it. She's won. She's good.
Yeah. I tell everybody.
Because she hasn't, for months, I want to look like so-and-so. I want to look like that. The fact that she's saying positive things about herself. Yeah. It's not, I don't like this, I don't like that. The fact that she was saying positive things about herself.
All we want to do is get her to the best version of herself. I said, that's it. Feel, fit, and function. I tell everybody 3 Fs. Don't worry about the weight loss. How do you feel? How do you fit in your clothes? And how do you function? If one of those 3, or if all of them been improved, then that's all we care about.
Yep. And she just, and that's the thing. Just no matter what it is, if it's your kid, if it's you, just going in with an open mind. Don't look at something that we've always tried to say as well, there are so many things that Jemma deals with that we could allow to disable her.
Yeah. Don't look at it as a disability.
Instead, what we focused on was working on the other categories to give her more things to enable her.
Yeah.
To where like with testing out of first steps. Yeah, she might have tested it at a 5 or 6 year old level, which completely overshadowed where she needed the occupational therapy. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to work on as much as we possibly can to get you in the best shape, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it is that we can possibly do, to where she's prepared to tackle any obstacle, any challenge, anything else that might come her way. Because we've made it this far. She's 15 years old. She's gone through the surgery. She's gone through switching schools. She's done this, done that. And it's just, if we hadn't stepped back and tried to figure things out, if we had just kind of waited around to kind of
Yeah.
let things happen, it could have been a much different situation for her. Because if we had waited for it to happen, there's no way we would have been prepared to help her to adjust and to cope with things,
Yep.
whether it's emotionally or whatever else. It helped us to go ahead and grow, so we could give her the support and whatever else she possibly needed. So it's just kind of, when you focus on the negative part, it kind of,
You can choose to whether let it bring you down, or you can focus on the things
and
that'll
it
bring
kind of
you
it
up.
kind of puts you in that black hole, to where yeah, you can have a pity party and say, oh, my sweet baby, what's she gonna do, yeah, what is she gonna do?
Yep.
She's
She's
from
gonna
now on,
do a lot.
it's, she's gonna do this, she's gonna do that. It's not how she's gonna suffer, it's how she's gonna overcome. And it's and the same thing for Colin. It's you know I don't want to focus on what holds him back. I want to focus on what we can do to get him beyond that.
Yep.
And it's just, you've got to address everything that way, whether it's if your child has Down syndrome, or if your child's autistic, if even if they just have a speech impediment. Just googling different ways that we've worked on with her speech. There are so many different things. Don't be afraid to reach out to some random person that's in
Yeah.
Ireland. I mean, I've learned something from a family that was in Ireland. Every single person in their family has Stickler syndrome. And she suggested some kind of natural homeopathic, like an oil mix that you can use, that you actually diffuse in your room, and it helps with sinuses and ear issues and things like that. And it's something I never heard of, but that's the thing. Don't be afraid that someone's going to judge you because you don't know. Just reach out, because I would rather reach out and risk someone laughing at me like, how did you not know this? I'd rather seem stupid
No,
in asking.
you don't know until you ask. I mean, and
Yeah.
I can tell you from personal experience raising a special needs child myself. I see both ends of the spectrum. Parents that I feel sorry that the child was born into that family. Ones that just look at it as a side, something they got to deal with, or just a hassle. And then, the ones like you who go above and beyond and are always trying to do the best and find the best resources. So if you've ever second guessed yourself or think, that you could have done something better, trust me, you've done very well, and should be very proud of not only your daughter, but yourself. And so keep fighting the good fight. And you're doing way more than what most people that I've talked to with special needs kids. You're doing all that you can. So thank you. And thank you for Jemma too. She's an inspiration even more now. I wish I had a little bit of her to give to the handful of other teenagers that I'm currently trying to coach and make them get their butts in gear.
I wish I had some of her to give to some adults I know.
Yeah, but thank you for coming on. I know it's late, and I know you got teared up a couple of times. So maybe in a few months we'll have part two, and recap and see how Jim is doing, starting in the spring.
I know she has goals, and she's joined a lot of different clubs with school, and is trying to be involved in as much as she can, to where she can experience everything she can, and she just wants to do it all.
It's awesome. Can't ask for any more, and I'm sure you do, but looking at it as a blessing that God has given you her. You wouldn't have uh, been able to learn and grow and find all this stuff out about yourself if it hadn't have been for her, disability or whatever you want to call it. So that's the way I look at what Isaiah's given us. We see things through a completely different lens than most people, and it's something that most people don't get to experience. So I think you're looking at it exactly how you should be.
Yeah, just back to your whole program and everything. That what I told you, how she deals with pain and everything else with Jemma. I think part of what she deals with sometimes is kind of feeling helpless and not having control over things. And I think as a woman, as a female in general, I think we have a tendency to overthink things and to dive
Yeah.
into things and to stress about things. And for her, I think my goal with her is she might not be able to control her vision or her hearing or, her aches and pains and things, but I want her to know that, if she focuses on being healthy and just doing something that makes her feel good about herself, because after she works out, she just glows. You can just tell that she feels. I want her to feel something every day to where she knows she's accomplished something.
Yeah.
She does that enough with school and everything else, but to have that control and to know that she's done something, she's set a goal, but it's the whole doing it together. We've done everything else together so far, so seeing her push me and knowing, again, like I said, my muscles hurt. Well, Jemma, everything hurts on Jemma. So
it's
do
motivated.
another plank, do a burpee. You're gonna do 10 burpees for her because she can't.
It's
so
motivated you too.
Yep. So
that's awesome. Well, I'm proud.
She kicks my tail. So
I'm proud of both of you, and I'm proud to be both of your all's coach. So keep fighting the good fight, and tell Jemma thank you for being an inspiration, and thank you for being on the show. Appreciate it very much. One of the first 3 episodes, and so like I said, this has been a great way to mix it up between Down syndrome, autism, and now something that is a brand new world to me. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, girl. See ya. Drink your water. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in to the Superhero Parent Pod. I appreciate your support so much. Words cannot describe how much it means to me. Send this show to everyone who could benefit from it, and thank you so much. Again, we are on Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, wherever you find your podcasts at, we should be there. And in the show notes, in the show description, the application to be on the show is embedded in that. So if you yourself would like to come on the show and tell your story, if you know someone who would benefit from being on the show or could positively impact others from being on the show, feel free to send that application to them as well. Remember, strength comes through transparency. Okay, we are all in this together. Do not struggle alone. Do not feel like you are isolated. That is the devil. What the devil wants us to do is to isolate us and make us feel weak, and you are not that. So strength comes through transparency, and by being on the show and telling your story, you're not only strengthening yourself, but everyone else around you, people that you may never even come in contact with, could hear your story, and it may just brighten their day. All right, so that application is in the description and in the show notes. Feel free to send it to someone. Feel free to fill it out yourself if you feel like your child's story will benefit others. Someone from our team will reach out to you and let you know if you've been approved to be on the show or not. And again, thank you so much. Stay strong, stay healthy. Everybody keep moving in the right direction, and have a great rest of the day. God bless.